This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast, episode number 171. We are wrapping up our 2024 financials today, talking about December, trying to wrap up how things went over that holiday season, but boy, do we have some stories to get to before that. I am Craig. Over there, he's Chris. How's it going, Chris?
Good. How you doing?
Not bad. You know why?
Why?
Because I've got a sweet new hat on. Okay.
It's a good looking hat.
So, I usually tell everybody, go to Haulin Assets LLC for show notes. Go to Motor Carrier HQ for tips and tools and all that stuff. But also go to motorcarrierhq.com for merch. Merch, baby. And I'm not kidding. This probably sounds like a really weak sauce sales pitch. But when Chris left the studio last time, I said, hey, Chris, if you have any more of those Motor Carrier HQ trucker hats, let me know, because they're great. This is the best hat I own. It's awesome. So
yeah, this is number two.
I beat the heck out of the first one.
You probably had that one for
2 or 3 years.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you can get that at motorcarrierhq.com. Lastly, HaulinAssetsAcademy.com if you like a self-directed educational route, which I assume is a pretty popular thing for podcast listeners who consume an educational and lightly entertaining podcast like this one. So HaulinAssetsAcademy.com. You can go check out some courses that'll help you make that leap from employee driver to owner operator.
And I have an announcement with Haulin Assets Academy. We just dropped 2 new modules.
2? I knew about one.
You did. So the 2 new modules one is on hiring. So a whole bunch of things you can do as far as hiring goes, including getting into, how do you advertise for it, and just dives deep into hiring drivers. And then the second module is kind of a marketing module. As any kind of successful business, you've got to be able to market yourself, market your business. And this one goes from everything from, what is paid marketing, what are the different types, online marketing, even show you step-by-step how to build a website, because that's something that's kind of important for trucking companies. It gives you some credibility and, can make you, it puts a best foot forward and best face on your company. And so both of those modules have lots of great things in them. Check them out.
Okay, absolutely. HaulinAssetsAcademy.com. Chris, parking. As I hear it, so you sent me a little note. You said, by the way, we need to talk about parking because it's an issue. and now you're about to lose your mind.
Am I turning red yet?
Let it out. What's going on, Chris? Okay, go get zen.
Yes. So it's kind of funny. A week or so ago, I launched. We just kind of did a little social post about parking, what a big issue it is, what a problem it is. And we had a really big problem with parking this last weekend. One specific incident, and it's kind of made me furious. I'm still mad about it. It just ticks me off even thinking about it, because this isn't just a parking problem, but this is essentially a company that is using the parking problem to take advantage of truck drivers in the situation.
Okay, so in what way?
It's crazy. So it's this truck stop.
Okay.
Just north of Charlotte in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And shame on freaking North Carolina for even allowing something like this to happen. It's just right off the 77, just north of Charlotte. It's called Charlotte Travel Plaza is the name of the place. It's a little Shell fueling stop with a truck plaza.
That sound you hear is a whole bunch of truckers going, oh yeah.
Been there. Yeah. So anyway, one of our drivers pulls in the afternoon, and okay, the driver could have done maybe a little bit better and been a little bit more aware of his surroundings.
Okay.
Because driving into the place, there are parking signs that tell you that at this travel plaza, you have to check in. And so anyway, he pulls in, he drives, he parks, in a legal parking spot inside the Travel Plaza.
In a legal
spot.
Okay, yeah, it sounded like you
And
said
it,
illegal.
like midnight, sometime during when he parked and midnight, they put a boot on his truck because he didn't go in and check in, which you almost never have to do. Like that's not like a common requirement at any truck stop. So doesn't check in, gets booted. And then in the middle of the night, they come and pound on his door, demanding payment immediately to get the boot released. Guess what? Like, think about, a parking fine infraction. Like, what would be a reasonable or even just a higher than normal, but still in the realm of possibility parking fine?
In the realm of possibility, I would still consider this high, but if somebody said it's $200, I'd be pissed. But let's hear it.
$1,500.
Holy. Okay. This, Chris, is what we call guild economics, otherwise known as gang tactics, right?
Yeah,
this is organized crime.
Absolutely. Like the booting / towing company is in cohorts with this Travel Plaza.
Yeah.
And you don't check in, and they come, when the driver's asleep in the middle of the night, harassing the driver, demanding $1,500. And they say, if you don't pay in the next, I can't remember exactly what it is, hour or two, it's going to be $2,250. And if we end up having to tow you, it'll be $5,000 to $6,000.
Holy crap. Okay. So when you started this story and you were huffing and puffing, I was like, okay, Chris is he's doing something for comic effect. No, I'm pissed now.
It's aggravating.
Yeah.
And so to make a long story short, Nate was actually the one that took the call. He was on call in the middle of the night. And he talked to they ended up calling the cops, or our driver called the cops, because you don't feel like, is this legal, or can they actually do this? Because that's crazy. So the cops said, we get called out to this place all the time. It's a loophole in North Carolina's law. It is legal, completely unethical in my opinion. But
nothing the cops can do.
There's nothing the cops can do. So to make a long story short, we end up paying that. And, it's extortion. It's a scam. It's a legal scam from the way that I look at it. And kind of like I said, shame on North Carolina for not having a law that at least caps a parking fine. That's just that's worse than usury interest, in my opinion. It's ridiculous. And this all happens because you have this perfect storm of, it's hard to find parking, especially when you're in a big metro area like that.
Right.
And so a driver finally finds some place to park, and, typically the worst thing that happens, the whole time that I was driving, there were places that I ended up parking that I probably shouldn't have been, but it's usually a knock on the door with somebody saying, move your ass. And that's as far as it goes. I never got a parking ticket. It's we, as a company, I can only think of one other time. There's probably been more, but I can only think of one other time we've gotten some kind of parking ticket, but nothing anywhere in the realm of $1,500. That's just, to me, that's wrong, completely unethical, stupid.
So the other thing about this story that's making me laugh and is utterly justified, I'll tell you, if longtime listeners, or, if you're a new listener and you go back and listen to the archive, there are times, Chris, where you will make a complaint of some kind, and you're very careful to say, look, this is something that I don't love, but I want to complain about this thing, and you won't name where or who or any of that stuff. And when you started
I'm calling these people out.
When you started the story, just north of Charlotte, what'd you call it? The
Charlotte Travel Plaza.
Charlotte Travel Plaza,
right off of 77.
That's
don't go there. I'm not advocating that you poop in their parking lot, but I don't know what you do is your business. These guys are crooks, as far as I'm concerned.
Amazing,
full blown crooked.
And so now that'll be part of the Haulin Assets training manual for new drivers. Is under no circumstances will you go there. Okay. Well, good to know, Chris. You feel? Did you get it out?
I feel a little bit better, but I kind of want to I think we're going to put some like social media muscle behind this too, and talk a little bit more about it. And like honestly, like it's one thing for the company that does that, but it also really aggravates me that North Carolina would allow this kind of thing to happen in their state. Like there's got to be some kind of cap on a reasonable fine for a parking violation or parking for not walking in the building and checking in. Like that's just, they are doing this as a revenue source, and it's ridiculous.
I was going to say, Chris, do you want a little rude education on how state governments work?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And now all of our listeners know. Chris, you want to talk about money and spreadsheets and miles? And
yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
It's time to move on.
Let's do it. All right. Let's talk revenue. First of all, let's talk mileage. All right. For the month of December, this was the big push to Christmas. I assume that there were more than your average number of days where some trucks were sitting toward the end of the month, right? Around Christmas and New Year's. But I assume you guys were running pretty hard in the 3 weeks before all that. Am I right?
That's a good way to put it. So we still had 121,021 miles
on 11 trucks.
On 11 trucks, which is a better than average month, or at least average, kind of right where we want to be, about 11,000 miles per truck. And that's even with the Christmas holiday, which, a lot of people, like you said, run hard at other points in the month so they can spend time with their families over Christmas. And then also on top of that, we had one truck that drove way less than half the number of normal miles for a month. So you kind of had one outlier that also affected that number. Otherwise, that number would have been a little bit harder. And it's hard when it happens in December. It's hard when it happens in a month that's typically a good revenue month, because that's when that's when you want to take the least amount of time off, because that's when the numbers and the profits and everything can be the absolute best.
Okay. So 11 trucks going 121,000 miles with how much deadhead?
Let's see, it was 7,282, which is 6%. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
That's actually just barely a few more miles than last month, with quite a few more loaded miles. So pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Total revenue then over that time?
$253,288.09.
Okay. So bigger revenue than I would expect with that number of miles, right? Is that just due to the market in December being a little better?
Market December is always a little bit better.
Okay. All right. And that gives us an all-in rate per mile of, drum roll please,
$2.09.
Okay.
You
know what? Drum roll revoked.
Okay, not the best, not the worst. If you look over the last 2 or 3 years when the freight market's been really bad, I'm not going to complain too much about $2.09 a mile. It's a little lower than it was last December, but I don't think that's really, it's close enough that it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a big shift in the market one way or the other. It's pretty similar to last December.
Okay. All right. You're looking for the rate per mile. Do you have a number in mind, and does that number shift month to month? Is your expectation for December going to be different than in January, February?
Overall, I'd like to see a rate per mile averaging across the entire fleet of $2.25 a mile right now. Does that number change? Yes. Maybe a little bit month to month, but what more causes it to change are just changes in expenses. If you've got a fuel expense that already, that overnight increases 10 cents a gallon, like that's one of those things that, is going to affect you need to try to price that into your rate. Yeah. Easier said than done, but
of course.
And
also it helps to avoid extortionist parking lots.
Yeah.
So, okay, excellent. So we've got our rate per mile of $2.09 over 121,000 miles. That gave us $253,000 in revenue and change, for a profit, I'm hoping, of $
12,042, and I don't have the cents in here, but I'm pretty sure it was 27 cents.
It's my turn to get incensed, Chris.
Yeah.
This
is look at you go.
Yeah. No.
I'm pretty sure it was 27 cents.
Okay, so just over 12,000 for 11 trucks, and as I understand it, you'd like that to be for a break-even number. You're looking for $20K.
More like $30K.
More like $30K. All right. And so this is not technically a loss, but it's also not a terribly strong month.
Yeah, it's not. But with that being said, it really wasn't terrible, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we dive into the P&L.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think we're ready to do that. Let's dive into the P&L. What do you want to highlight first?
So the biggest reason it was as low as it was is because there were 5 payrolls. Technically, there weren't 5 payrolls in December. There was one in November, but it fell on the last day of the month,
which is on a weekend.
And it was on a weekend. It was over Thanksgiving, and so that kind of shifted everything. And so the money didn't actually come out of our account until the first business day in December, and then
it took you all the way to the 30th.
Yeah,
for the five rounds.
So then
payroll.
That resulted in 5 in December.
So
if you look at the just the raw numbers, that's $26,000 more in payroll in December than November.
Okay, and that would hold true. That's not about seasonality or anything like that. That's just the 5 payrolls.
Yeah, so that's a big impact on that. That's, if there was a 4 more normal payroll month, I mean, we would have been looking at least 20,000, if not more.
So normally when we talk about P&L, we talk about fuel, we talk about maintenance and repairs. Can we hold off on those for a second? Now I want to pause on this fifth week payroll issue. Now, you've talked in the past about how this is kind of the norm across the industry. It's a paid weekly kind of thing, right? The drivers prefer this, and I totally get why. Okay, and this is kind of the way it is. If it weren't that way, if you as a business owner decided, I'm going to pay my people twice a month, the 15th and the 30th, and that's just how it's going to be, right? Screw the industry norms. All right, I'm a rogue, I'm a renegade, right? I named my company Haulin Assets, for heaven's sake. If that were the case, would it benefit the business beyond just the predictability of payments? Does that make sense, right? Does it have any financial benefit or loss to do the weekly payroll thing as a business owner?
I would say at a business our size, not really. I mean, the only benefit that I could possibly think of is you're holding onto your money just a little bit longer. And so you could potentially, like if you were a bigger company that had bigger funds where it made sense to like invest that money and get kind of a return on that, then it would. But for us, not really, other than the predictability, the convenience, like you're running payroll twice a month instead of 4 or 5 times a month. Running payroll takes a lot of time. Like it's a process. And so, we have to do it weekly. And to be honest with you, like I've never in my life, in all the jobs that I've ever had, been paid weekly. In all of my other businesses, we pay either every other Friday or twice a month. Yeah. Paying weekly is really very uncommon if you look at all the jobs across the board.
Right. All right, Chris. So the other aspect of the P&L that you always like to hit is fuel. Anything interesting happened there in December?
No, not really, other than it was pretty normal. So 26% of revenue essentially. And it's been kind of interesting. We've held pretty steady for quite some time now at around that same 26% range. It was quite a bit higher a year ago, 1 to 2 years ago.
The low 40s.
Yeah, it got into at least the mid 30s and even high 30s. We may have had 40. Like it got ridiculous at one point. So it's nice kind of seeing that stability makes things a little bit more predictable for everybody. Hopefully it continues that way.
Okay. And then maintenance and repairs is another common category. I didn't see anything that jumped out.
No, it was probably one of the better months in maintenance and repairs that we've had in the last several months. So that was good.
Okay. Any other aspects of the P&L to highlight this month?
I think that's it.
Okay. So as a reminder, if you go to HaulinAssetsLLC.com, you can actually see this profit and loss statement. You can compare it to past months where there may have been more exciting things to pull out. And, why was this a normal month? Well, you can dig into those numbers and see those at HaulinAssetsLLC.com. I guess thank you very much to the Charlotte
Travel Plaza.
Charlotte Travel Plaza for at least giving us something to talk about at the beginning of this episode. I don't know that it was worth $1,500 and cops in the middle of the night, but we'll take the silver linings where we can find them, Chris.
It did give us a good talking point.
All right. Good luck to everybody out there. Do not park there under any circumstances if you can at all avoid it. And Chris, I guess I'll see you in a couple weeks.
We'll see you then.
All right, Chris, we're a little light on time, which means we can have story time.
Yay.
Do you want my parking story?
Yeah, I want a parking story.
It's not that exciting, and a lot of people have had this one. It was me as a teenager, okay? Took my girlfriend up to the Overlook, right? This is
You've got a lot of good girl teenage stories. You were a delinquent.
It depends on who you ask.
Your mom?
Yeah, I was going to say that moms didn't care for it. The girls seemed to like it. So, anyway, so I take her up there. We're making out in the car, and she's a little bit worried. She's nervous, like, oh, somebody's going to come. Like, we're not parked anywhere weird, but it was kind of a little out of the way, right? And come to find out later that, a lot of teenagers use this spot. And so it's a pretty regular round for the cops. And sure enough, and I'm trying to reassure her, I'm like, look, nothing's going to happen. Nobody comes up here. That's fine. So let's keep making out, right? Hey, this is fun. Sure enough, an hour later, cop
tink, tink, tink.
Tink, tink, tink on the window, sheriff's department. And she lost her mind. I've never seen anything quite like it before. Just broke down immediately. There's something that, fear of authority or something like that. I was like, well, what's going to happen? Am I going to get arrested? And I rolled down the very, very foggy window, and because it's winter, and the cop's like, what you guys doing? And what am I going to say? Having a good time? And I said, oh, yeah. So, well, go have it somewhere else. And that was it.
But she thought the world was going to, at least acted like the world was going to end.
I'm telling you, you've never seen anything. Like, it was so quick. Just that the headlights lit up the cab of the truck I was in, and she just lost it.
She will probably never get a speeding ticket. She'll just cry those crocodile tears every time a cop comes up, and she will never get a ticket.
Did I tell you I got my first speeding ticket last summer?
Really?
It was a year and a half ago. Yeah. Wow. So I made it 22 years
That's
on the road.
Impressive.
I'd never even been pulled over, Chris.
Wow.
So
look at you, outstanding citizen. That
it's not
only delinquent with the women, with the ladies.
I just know that the smartest play is to be the third fastest guy on the freeway, right?
Absolutely.
So it worked like a charm until I hit a speed trap, and it was in the city. It wasn't even on the freeway. So you know what? No, never mind. I was going to make another joke. We'll leave it there.
What city was it?
Salt Lake.
So I think I've gotten maybe, 3 speeding tickets in my life. One of them was in Salt Lake, 2100 South. 400
South, freeway entrance. They were just parking there waiting at the bottom of the hill, man.
Jerks.
So, all right. I guess now we'll go.
All right. Sounds good. We'll see you in 2 weeks.